On January 6, 2016, at an upmarket cafe in Jakarta, Indonesia, Mirna Salihin collapsed and started convulsing while frothing at the mouth. She died that very same day. Weeks later, her friend Jessica was arrested for her murder. Welcome back to our channel. This is part 2 of our series on the case of Jessica Wongso, the woman found guilty of murdering her friend Mirna with a cyanide-laced coffee. Today we're going to take a look at the investigation, the evidence, and the trial to find out if justice was served or did the system fail both women. As soon as Mirna collapsed, chaos ensued. The waiters and the manager rushed over to help. Hani was panicking, trying to wake Mirna up. In the meantime, Jessica stood by, watching quietly with her face calm and devoid of emotion. The manager quickly asked the waiter to call an ambulance. Everyone thought Mirna was having a seizure, but then Jessica suddenly accused the manager of putting something in the drink. This made the manager suspicious and told the staff to put away the coffee and seal it. The manager would give the sealed coffee to the police later that day. Hani called Arif and told him what had happened to Mirna, who had been brought to the Grand Indonesia Mall Clinic before being referred to Abdi Waluyo Hospital. Unfortunately, Mirna was declared dead at 6:30 p.m. Mirna's family and friends were shocked. How could this happen? It didn't take long for the suspicion to fall on Jessica based on the statements given by witnesses regarding her odd behavior. But could she really be that brazen, committing murder in broad daylight in such a public place? Just 3 days after the incident, the police declared that the iced coffee contained 298 milligrams of cyanide, more than enough to kill a person. So, was it the cyanide that killed Mirna? Due to religious reasons, the family refused to have a formal autopsy conducted on the body. They did, however, permit the medical examiner to obtain samples. The medical examiner was able to determine that Mirna's intestines showed corrosion, which is in line with cyanide poisoning. Her reaction to drinking the iced coffee was also consistent with cyanide poisoning. However, toxicology tests conducted on her gastric fluid, bile, liver, and urine 70 minutes after she died showed no traces of the poison. And then 3 days later, another test was conducted, and now 0.2 milligrams of cyanide was found in her body. The contradicting test results only served to confuse everyone and cast a veil of doubt over the whole case. Was Mirna poisoned or not? But this doubt didn't mean Jessica was off the hook. The police were already halfway convinced of her guilt. So was the public. Jessica's behavior that day had raised a lot of suspicions. She was the one who bought the drink and had access to it for at least 45 minutes. What she did to that coffee could not be seen behind the paper bags she had arranged across the table. By the time Mirna had arrived, the color of the drink no longer looked like regular coffee brown. It had a strange yellow tint to it, according to the authorities. And it was that coffee that Jessica offered to Mirna, saying, "This is for you, Mir. You said you wanted this." Moreover, her actions after the incident only served to make her look even more guilty. Due to the chaos that day, the police weren't able to search her and her belongings. It was later found out that she had thrown out the pants she was wearing that day. She stated that the pants had gotten damaged while trying to help Mirna, a statement that was clearly false considering what we saw in the CCTV footage. That's not all. Jessica called Mirna's sister, Sandy, on the day she died to ask about the results of the laboratory tests. She also sent Sandy a link to an article about fake coffee laced with cyanide being sold in Vietnam, and her behavior during the funeral was unusual. Unlike every one of Mirna's friends and family who were crying their eyes out, Jessica seemed nonchalant. But all of Jessica's strange actions could not prove her guilty of murder. What the police needed was direct evidence, such as how Jessica obtained the poison. While chemical supplies companies in the country supplied it, they wouldn't sell it just to anyone. Moreover, the dosage provided would be limited. Perhaps Jessica had smuggled it into the country from Australia. Then again, that would be incredibly risky. The only way she could have gotten her hands on cyanide was from villagers who still used it to capture exotic fish. Unfortunately, they couldn't find any evidence to prove this theory. As the investigation continued, rumors spread about the murder and the possible motive. Some suggested that Arif and Jessica had briefly dated while in Australia, based on something Jessica said to her former co-worker. However, it was quickly debunked. There were also accusations against Arif. Reportedly, he was seen talking to a barista at Olivier, and that he had offered the barista around $10,000 to put poison in the coffee. Allegedly, Arif wanted to get a hefty life insurance payout. The barista refuted the claim. Mirna's family also denied these allegations. Arif was a talented and successful businessman. He didn't need to kill Mirna for money. More importantly, he had an alibi for the time in question. While sorting out rumors from facts, the police decided that they needed more evidence against Jessica if they were to build a case against her. So they reached out to the Australian Federal Police and headed to Sydney to get more information about Jessica before she returned to Jakarta. In exchange for their help, the AFP requested that if Jessica were to be convicted, she would not get the death penalty. It didn't take long for the police to learn all about Jessica's problematic behavior for the past 2 years. According to the AFP, she had been involved in 14 police reports between 2014 and 2015. Jessica had tried to unalive herself several times. She also had an interim restraining order filed against her by her ex-boyfriend. The Indonesian authorities also interviewed her former supervisor at New South Wales Ambulance. According to the supervisor, Jessica was a manipulative, scheming, and emotionally unstable person who had 2 different personalities. While visiting Jessica during one of her stays in the hospital due to an attempt to unalive herself, the supervisor recalled Jessica telling her that she knew how to kill someone with a gun and the right dosage. More importantly, Jessica had threatened her, telling her, "You must die, and your mum must die," when the supervisor refused to help her find a place. The Indonesian police were forming a picture of Jessica that was quite different from what she presented in Jakarta. On June 15, 2016, Jessica Wongso was tried on charges of premeditated murder. It was the trial of the century for Indonesia. The entire thing was aired nationwide. The doors of the court was open to the public. The country was fascinated. A rich socialite with a slim figure, silky black hair, and a bright smile, Jessica certainly didn't look anything like a malicious murderer. But then appearances can be deceiving. Did she really murder her friend? Public opinion was divided. Several witnesses testified about Jessica's strange actions on that fateful day. The cafe's staff testified that they would serve straws alongside the drinks, not in them. They did remove part of straw's wrapper, leaving only one end covered for hygiene purposes. They also testified to seeing the straw's remaining wrapper was removed, and the straw itself was inside the drink prior to Mirna's arrival. So we can assume that it was Jessica who removed the wrapper and placed the straw inside the glass. Why would she do this when she knew that her guests would not be arriving until at least 30 minutes later? After she was done, footage shows Jessica can be seen moving the shopping bags away and placing them behind the half-moon seat, leaving only the drinks left on the table. Why put the bags on the table only to move them away later on unless you wanted to hide your actions from everyone in the cafe and the CCTV camera? For the defense, their biggest argument was whether Mirna actually died of poison. Several experts for the defense argued that the cause of Mirna's death could not be determined due to the lack of a complete autopsy. According to them, it's possible that Mirna died from an underlying medical condition. Despite the lack of direct evidence proving the prosecution's case, many still believed that Jessica was guilty. It didn't help that she kept smiling and laughing on camera throughout the whole trial. It didn't take long for a panel of 3 judges in the Central Jakarta District Court to present their verdict. By the end of October 2016, Jessica Wongso was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 20 years in prison. For many, it seemed that the case was now closed. The killer has been caught, tried, and punished. But when Netflix came out with a documentary on the case, many started to ask questions. Did Jessica really murder Mirna? We can't say for sure. One thing we know for sure is that Mirna's cause of death was never determined. The toxicology results were contradicting, and there was never any evidence showing definitive proof that Jessica had put cyanide in Mirna's drink. Yes, she did act incredibly suspicious that day. What with arriving at the cafe 90 minutes before the actual meeting, checking out the CCTV cameras in the cafe, ordering the drinks too early, and using the paper bags to cover her actions. Her police record in Australia certainly didn't help in painting Jessica in a positive light, but without direct evidence pointing to Jessica, her guilt is not beyond reasonable doubt. While we certainly think it is likely that Jessica murdered Mirna, the trial was by no means fair. And maybe that's why Jessica was released on parole after serving only 8 years, allowing her to fight for her life while enjoying a bit of freedom. Thank you for watching. What do you think about this case? Is Jessica guilty of Mirna's murder or a victim of circumstance? Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more true crime stories. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe.